Okay, so focus lesson. Next is guided instruction. The we do it part, that's not me, that's somebody else. So that's where you're really beginning to shift that cognitive load. And a lot of times you'll see the start of a guided instruction. Sometimes I know as an English teacher, I might be modeling how to write a paragraph about blah, 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 whatever it might be. And sometimes by the end of that paragraph, I'm sort of switching into a guided instruction mode. Instead of showing them, okay, well, I'm going to do a topic sentence, and this is what I'm writing, and what really is my main idea here that I'm trying to occur? And then toward the end, I may be starting to ask them questions to help me fill in the rest of the paragraph or whatever it might be. So sometimes there's a little bit of a transition from a focus lesson to a guided instruction or the other way around. So this component of the GRR model is where you're really shifting the cognitive load from teacher to student, kind of in a very scaffolded way. You're carefully crafting the dialogue that you're having with your students. And it sounds like a lot of work, but I know I found that once I had that framework sort of within my brain, it became relatively easy to craft that dialogue by asking the right questions or asking them to show me how we should proceed. It does include the temporary supports. And the one thing I think about scaffolding we forget is it really is temporary. That the goal is to be able to remove them. I used to use with my 8th grade students, they would, well, tell us how to do it. It's like, we've been working on this for the last 4 weeks. You tell me how to do it now. What's my next step? And I'm really starting to push that back onto them. And the funny thing is most of the time they know. They just haven't developed that framework of thinking where it's okay for them to be the one that directs what's happening. They don't trust themselves quite enough for that because they're so used to somebody perhaps coming in and saying, okay, well, here's your next step. Here's your next step. Instead of asking them, okay, well, here's the first step. You tell me what's next, after they've been given some focused instruction. And again, you are building towards something that the student still may not yet be able to complete on their own. Or they may not fully understand. It's a transition kind of stage. And it might include small group work. It might be whole class. If you're terrified of doing a lot of group work, it doesn't necessarily need to include group work at first. And it will definitely include frequent checks for understanding. And remember, we're not talking like big, elaborate, written assessment type questions, but the quick things that you do on the fly just to make sure people are getting it or not. And also, it can differentiate between the content and the process. So you're, in a way, if you're helping them master the content, well, you might be helping them master the content, and they've got a process for doing that they can tell you, okay, when we define a word, here's what we do first. We look it up in the dictionary. So learning the new definition, but the process they know, and so they can help respond to that. Okay, so some good examples of guided instruction might be guided reading, guided writing. And you can see example here on the screen of a graphic organizer. This is like a plot line for a novel or any kind of story or narrative. Student think alouds. Instead of you revealing your thinking, your student is revealing their thinking about why they did what they did or wrote down what they wrote, or whatever the skill might be. Misconception analysis. This is your chance to go in and see, are they getting it yet? If they're not, then you would do what Danny was suggesting. You flip back into some sort of a more focused lesson perhaps and give further explanations, give an idea of why those misconceptions are wrong. This is where a lot of EL students need the support because if they learn it wrong, then that's how they're going to remember it. So trying to find that out, what they really do understand and not understand during guided instruction is really important. And this is where you may be doing some formative assessments, check and work really quickly, walk in the room, seeing what's what, and going from there.